All right. So if we go out to code.org and we go to lesson 3, level 1, when I'm talking in these lessons and I refer to the lesson and then the level is going to be what's up here in the middle. So if I say lesson 3, level 1, I'm talking about this one here and the lesson number over here. So if I were to go to lesson 3, level 7, I'd be referring to that 7 that pops up down below this bubble. Okay, and I'm going to explain here as soon as we go to the next level, level 2, or in a few levels here, what I mean by those requirements in Google Classroom for your screenshot. So for today, it says the class is introduced to Gamelab, the programming environment for this unit, and begins to use it to position shapes on the screen. The lesson covers the basics of sequencing and debugging, as well as a few simple commands. At the end of the lesson, students will be able to program images like this one, like the ones they made with the drawing tool in the previous lesson, which we didn't do. We skipped lesson 2 for those of you that are concerned about not doing that. We skipped that one because it's an activity with partners, and because of COVID, we are no longer doing partner-related activities for now. So our vocab for the day, a bug is a part of a program that does not work correctly. If we do debugging, we're finding and fixing problems in an algorithm or a program. And then a program is just an algorithm that has been coded into something that can be run by a machine. And then we're going to be using this code, this new code down below here. Filling a color, we're going to be drawing ellipses or circles or ovals using this ellipse command. And then rect is going to be our squares and our rectangles with an x and y coordinate and a width and a height. Now you notice that each ellipse and rectangle has an x and a y coordinate and a width and a height, and we'll talk about how those are going to differ between those two and where those x and y coordinates are going to be placed on that shape and where we're going to place it. So we can go ahead and press continue through code.org. So as we're doing this in code.org, you should have this open and be following along in code.org so that your account is showing that you're logged in and it's documenting that you've done these levels. Okay, so you need to be following along in code.org as we're going through. Okay, when I talk about the screenshot, like I said in our assignment in Google Classroom, when I talk about the screenshot, I'm saying that it needs to include, your screenshot must include your login information in the top right. So if I go back to code.org, my login information is up here in the top right. Mine just says Mr. because I'm logged in as Mr. Clark. Yours should say your first or last name or some sort of login information up there. Then it says your output window on the left side of Code Studio showing your code working. Okay, what that refers to is this box over here. This is called our output window. And this is going to, anytime that I press run, this is going to show what is happening when I run my code. So this also needs to be included in the same screenshot, not in a separate screenshot, in the same screenshot. And then the very last thing is going to be as many screenshots as needed to include all lines of code in that lesson. Okay, so what I mean by that is all of your code in the workspace here, in your workspace down here, all of this code must be included. So if I have a bunch of lines of code here and I have to scroll down in order to see them all, that's when you'll be including multiple screenshots. When you include multiple screenshots, after you've taken your initial one of your login information up in the top right, your output window on the left, and your first bit of code, so I take pretty much a full screenshot. After you've included that one screenshot with your login information in your output window, you don't need to include all of the rest of them with those first two, just the rest of your code. Okay? All right. Any questions on screenshots in code.org for your Google Classroom assignment?
Do we need a screenshot every single one of them?
No, you'll just screenshot your assignment, which will be at the very, very end. So
can we just take pictures of it on our phone and put it in the Dropbox?
Yep, as long as it includes those things that are required. So those 3 things. So if you wanted to, you could take a picture of your computer screen with your phone and then upload it to Google Classroom from your phone. I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with the screenshot being in any format whatsoever. as long as it's including those things that I'm requiring. Your login information up on the top, the output window on the left, and then all of your code. Okay. The only issue that I'm going to foresee that I've seen in the past that people run into is when we're in code and your code goes down below here and you need to scroll in order to include all of it. A lot of people forget to take that second or third screenshot.
Wait,
Okay.
of what?
So let's just say, let's say that my code here, oops. Let's say that my code here is so long that on the side here I have a scrolling bar and I need to be able to scroll down in order to see all of my code. A lot of people don't scroll down and take another screenshot so that I can see all of your code that you wrote in order to get whatever shows up over here. Okay, so in this case, if I have to scroll, let me pull this up. This would be my first screenshot. Okay, it's including my login information, my output window, and my code. But if you notice, there's a scroll bar over here, and I can't see all of my code. Okay, so I need to take another screenshot. So I'd have to save this, turn this in, and then I'd have to come back over here to code, scroll down, take another screenshot, and turn that second screenshot in. One thing that you can do in code.org so that you can see more of your lines of code is up here next to the instructions, there's this little up arrow. You can minimize the instructions so that more lines of code are included in your workspace, so you can see more. So now my first screenshot would include lines 1 through 30 instead of with my instructions down. It includes only lines 1 through 19. Okay, so just little helpful hints. If you have questions, like in the past, sending me a screenshot is going to be very useful in code.org. So if you're having a question or having a hard time with a certain level, taking a picture of what you've tried, including your code and your output, is going to help me a lot, because then I can help and say, oh, you messed up this line or something. Okay, so this is Gamelab. This is where we'll reset and run our code, see what happens. Yeah, with that one, you don't need to do anything. You can go ahead and just press finish on level 2. We're going to skip past the videos because I don't know how well they're going to come through on your guys' screens. So I'm just going to press continue here. If you want to watch those, you can always go back and watch them. I'm not going to download them and show them to you. It talks a lot about partner coding and things like that, which I think that I can explain just fine to you through our video. All right, this one. A big part of using Gamelab is understanding position. Remember, you can always turn on the grid or hover the mouse with to help find the X and Y position that you want. So we are going to click start over here. And what we want to do is we want to place 2 rectangles in the corners of the screen, just like in the picture. Okay, so in this picture up here, we've got 2 rectangles that are showing in the corner. Now, when I press run, I see this rectangle or square has shown up in this position. If I click this little box next to show grid down here underneath play, or underneath run or reset, depending on if you've clicked it or not, I click this little show grid. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to see the grid at which our objects are being placed. Now with a rectangle, these first 2, this is going to be, this is where I need my annotate tab. I'm just going to use the snipping tool. Okay, on this first tab here, this first rectangle, this is going to be the X position. The second one is going to be the Y. Okay, so what we are seeing here is each of these boxes is 50. So this is my Y and this is my X. So as I'm moving over to the right, I move over, this is 50. This is 100. Okay, as I move down in my Y, this is 50, this is 100. So if we notice, based on our two numbers here, 100 and 100, that our box is being placed based on the top left corner of the square. At 100 for the x and 100 for the y. Does that make sense? The square is being placed, the coordinates for where the square is being placed are for the top left corner of the box. Okay? So if we wanted to move this box up to the top left corner, where should I move it? What should I change those 100, 100 to?
0, 0.
0, 0, correct. So I'm going to change the first 100 to 0, the second 100 to 0, and then click reset and run. And now my square is up in the top corner. Okay, because the top left corner of the box is where it's being placed, and the top left corner of the grid is 0, 0. Now, for those of you that would think, well, that doesn't make sense. Usually the 0, 0 is in the bottom left. In code.org, 0, 0 is in the top left. And as we move our mouse underneath this show grid here, we can see how the X and the Y change. So a lot of times when I'm placing shapes on my grid, which is over here on my block, I like to have the show grid placed. So that way, if I'm like, oh, I want to place a rectangle here, I can just hover my mouse there and then look underneath this show grid, and it'll tell me, oh, if I want to place it there, I put my X at 300 and my Y at 200. And it'll place there. Do we see where that's showing up? Right here. Okay. So if I want to, remember rectangles are being placed based on the top left corner of the rectangle or the square. If I want one to show up in the bottom right corner, what would the numbers need to be? This one's kind of tricky. What do we think? Eli, where should we put it?
350 and 350.
Correct. So I'm going to have to go into my toolbox here and drag out another rectangle and type in 350 and 350. Why 350, 350, Eli?
Because that's the last square on the bottom right.
Correct. So if I look here, my rectangle, if I notice from this one, is 50 width by 50 height. So if I want it to show up here, I need to change it to 350, 350, and it'll fill this whole corner. So our rectangles or our squares are preset to 50 by 50. Okay. So we should have a rectangle on line 1 at 0, 0, and a rectangle on line 2 at 350, 350. If you have that, you can go ahead and press finish and continue past that video. Now we are to lesson 3, level 6. So with this one, it says you can also make the rectangles different colors with the fill command. It will set the color for every shape that comes after it in code. So we're going to look at the code that sets the color, which is this fill blue on line 1, and we're going to change the color from blue to yellow. So if I press run, this is what I get right now. I want this to be yellow. So I'm going to click reset, and I'm going to click the drop down on line 1 and change where it says blue and click yellow. Now, if this is a different color that they don't have, so they've got green, red, green, blue, and yellow. Let's say that I want to make this orange. I would have to click inside the double quotes that are on both sides and type orange. And a lot of them are built in. Okay, so I can make them orange. But if for some reason, if I accidentally delete a double quote on either side, it'll break. I have to, so there it gave me those red boxes because I deleted the double quote on that side. If I do it on the front side, it's going to give me another error. Maybe, there it is. Okay, it'll give me that error. So I have to have the double quotes on both sides. So if you see those show up and you just change the color, make sure that you didn't forget the double quotes on both sides. So again, we want this to be yellow, so I'm going to change it back to yellow. There's our yellow. And then it wants us to add a square by dragging the rectangle block into the code area below in the fill command, and then we want to put it right here. So I'm going to show my grid again so that I can see where I want to place it. Drag my rectangle out to line 4, and I want it to go right here. So I'm going to drag my cursor over my grid until I get into the top left corner of where this square would go. So I'm going to go right here, and then I'm going to look underneath there, and it says x100, y200. So that's what I'm going to type in here, x100, y200, reset and run, and it shows up there. So that grid is super helpful, and that x and y coordinate underneath the grid are also very helpful as to tell you what x and y coordinate to place them at. Okay, if you have all of that, go ahead and press finish. If you have any questions, please make sure that you unmute yourself and speak up, because I'm going to just keep going unless someone stops me and says, hey, I've got a question.
I had no idea you were doing them right now.
That I'm doing all the levels?
Yeah.
Girl. Of course I've been doing them all. At least these ones are easy.
No.
Yes, they are. Well, you can go back. So what we'll do, Bailey, is open it up and then start working on it. And then what we'll do is I can go back after we're done at the end, and I can show you the levels that you missed.
Okay, Clark, I have a question.
Yep.
So, the one that we take a screenshot of, is that just like number 11, or do you do?
It will be level 10. So if you look at.
So the stoplight, or whatever.
Nope, it'll be. I think level 10 is the flower.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Let's see here. All right, level 7. So this one. In Gamelab, it matters what order your code is in. New shapes are drawn on top of the ones that came before, covering up the shapes that are drawn first. You can see the difference when you use more than one color in your code. So look at the code that draws the two rectangles. The first is drawn red and the second is drawn blue. So we have this right now. We want it to look like this at the end. Change the red rectangle's color to green. So on line 1, I'm going to click the drop down and change it from red to green. So now I have this. And then I'm going to change the order of the code so that the green rectangle appears on top. Okay, so I really need to just flip these two around, correct? So that the other one shows up first. So one thing that's nice that's built into code.org is that I can left click and hold and drag and get this selection box. And so what I want to do is I want to select lines 3 and 4 and click and drag them and move them up above lines 1 and 2. So I'm going to left click, hold and drag over lines 3 and 4. And then I'm going to click on either one of them, hold, and then drag it up above so that my blue rectangle 200, 200 is on top. Now I could click and do that individually with each line of code, but I don't want them to get mixed up, or I don't want them to, I don't want to put them in the wrong order because I want them to stay in the same order that they're in. So that's why I use that left click and drag, and it'll be very useful later on. Okay, so now I click reset and run, and my green rectangle / square is on top. Any questions on that one? All right, go ahead and press finish. All right, lesson 3, level 8.
Clark, what you eating?
What am I eating? I'm eating a cinnamon pumpkin muffin.
Oh, that sounds yummy.
It is yummy. All right, you can use an ellipse to make a circle. So look at the code that makes the ellipse and add a new ellipse of a different color. So right now, if I press run, I've got this teal ellipse at 100, 100. Now, the thing that I want you to note from this level is if I press show grid, the 100, 100, it's placing that circle at the very center point of my ellipse. So this is a perfect circle because we haven't set the width and height of the circle, so it's automatically 50 by 50. But later on, even if my oval is super oblong, it's still going to place it in the very center. So the X and the Y for an ellipse code is always the center of the oval or ellipse or circle or whatever the case may be. Whereas if we remember from the past assignments, the rect or rectangle or square is always the top left. Okay, so we're going to add a new ellipse of a different color, and this one's orange and it looks like it's in the center. So first off, I want to change my color. So think of this fill color as like a paintbrush. Okay, and we're painting in teal right now because that was the first fill color that we had. So in order to get a new color, I need to fill and dip my brush, or fill and get a different color. So I want this to be orange, so I'm going to type in orange. Okay. Now whatever I put underneath orange is going to be that color. So I'm going to put ellipse, and I'm going to leave it at 200, 200 because I want it to go into the center, which is what they have over in the example over here. So I press reset and run, and that ellipse shows up. If I forgot to do this line 3, this color in orange, say I get rid of that, they're both going to be in teal. Okay, so we have to keep that ellipse or that fill color out there, and it has to go right here. Okay, now I have this. Any questions on that one? All right, go ahead and press finish there. We're on level 9. This is a great level for you to come back to if you are having if you want some extra practice. If you're either having trouble or you're doing very well, either way, great practice to come back to lesson 3, level 9. We're going to do this debug a stoplight. So if you click on C or debug a stoplight, it'll bring us to that level. So go ahead and open that one up. And it says the stoplight is all mixed up. Fix it so that it looks like the picture on the right. So we have this over here. Read the code that makes a stoplight. Change the code so the colors are correct. So the stoplight's drawn correctly, just the colors are all messed up. So if we look at this, right now it's got us drawing 3 rectangles at different locations and then filling black. And if I look over here, I want those 3 rectangles to be black. So what should I do with this fill on line 4?
Put it before the rectangle things.
Yep, put it right before my rectangles. And if I press reset and run, this is what I get. Okay, so now all my rectangles are the correct color, but my first stoplight is the wrong color now. So if I look at the first ellipse that's being drawn on line 5, then it's filling. I want that first ellipse, just like a normal stoplight would be, to be red. So I need to move this fill, red, up above the first ellipse. I press reset and run, and this is what I get. Okay, remember color first, like we're dipping our brush, then drawing our shapes. Get the color you want with fill, then draw your shapes. Okay, and that's going to happen for our yellow and for our green, where we need to move the fill color above the ellipse that's being drawn. So it's fill red on line 5, ellipse on line 6. Fill yellow on line 7, ellipse on 8. Fill green on 9, and ellipse on 10. So when I press reset and run, my colors are in the correct order. Okay, what they did is they drew the shapes, or had the shapes drawn, and then picked the color that they wanted, and it needs to be flipped. Any questions on that one? All right, go ahead and press finish. And then when it comes back to this, you can just press finish again. All right.
Hey, Mr. Clark.
Yep.
I'm having troubles figuring out how to turn it in. I've snipped it like 35 times and can't find it in my saved.
Snip it and then make sure you go File, Save As, and then change it to where you want it to be saved.
All right.
Either that or take, like Bailey had suggested earlier, take a picture with your phone and then download Google Classroom on your phone and turn it in that way.
How do I get the rectangle on top on number 10? And do we have to do number 9?
Yes, you need to do number 9. And number 10 is your assignment. So I'm going to talk about that here in a second.
So if we screenshot the thing, yeah.
Yes, yes, Jack. If you screenshot the assignment and turn it into Google Classroom, you should be good to go.
What if you have none of the other
Don't
things
leave
screen? You only have the 10 done.
10 is the only one that you need to do. So 10 is the assignment. So here, just give me a second here, everybody, and then I'll probably answer everybody's question.
What time is lunch?
Lunch is whenever we're done with class. Okay. All right. So for this in code.org, okay, this is, so lesson 3, level 10. I'm not going to explain how to complete this because this is your assignment. Okay. I'm going to explain the instructions, and then if you have questions on the instructions, I can help with that. But this level is your way of showing me that you understood everything that we did prior. Okay. So I'm not going to walk through this. I'm not going to do this one for you. This is going to be your way of showing, yep, I understood what's going on. It's like doing your daily work at the end of a lesson, of a lecture, or taking a quiz at the end of a unit. Okay. So this is something that you're going to have to do on your own. If you have little questions, I can help with those, but this is going to be something that I'm not going to help very much with, if at all. Okay. That's why the levels like level 9 are really important for you to practice on those, because then you can reference back to them and see, oh, I need this color to go, or this shape to go on top of this one. Then go back to a level that we had done in the past in this lesson and work on it from there. Okay. So this one says, often code doesn't work the first time it runs, and programmers have to debug it. The code below is supposed to make the picture on the right, this flower over here, but the programmer got confused about which order the code should be in, as well as how to put the square in the right place on the screen. Look at the code in the workspace, which is right here, and then change the code so that it makes the picture on the right. There's a hint. You'll need to move one line of code and change the coordinates of the square. Okay, so you'll need to change the coordinates of the rectangle, and it says you'll need to move one line of code. Okay. So if this is what we've been given, what do I need to do in order to change so that the rectangle goes in the correct spot? I recommend turning on your show grid and then going to the correct coordinates that you need the rectangle to go to, and then making sure that it's colored correctly. Once you're done, you need to take a screenshot of your login with your output menu or output window with your code, and then turn that into this Dropbox in Google Classroom. Any questions on that? Okay. If you're having trouble on where the rectangle should get placed, remember that rectangles are going to be placed and squares are going to be placed based on the top left corner of it. So right now it's being placed at 175, 175. If I need it to go where this circle is at, I need to move it to a different spot, clearly. What coordinates that is, I'm going to let you figure that out. And then we need to make it purple and it needs to show up on top. Right now it's showing up behind. So I'm gonna have to move the rectangle somewhere. The line that I'm drawing the rectangle. This rectangle line is gonna have to get moved somewhere. Okay.
Clark, when we're done, can we just leave the Google Meet?
Give me 1 second. I want to make sure that no one else has any questions first.
Okie dokie.
How do you snip? Like, what are the controls?
So you'll press your Windows key on your keyboard down on the bottom to the left of your space bar. And then you'll start typing the word snipping, and you'll use snipping tool. Okay. Snipping tool is going to pop up a little window. It's going to look like this. Can you see that? The snipping tool that's hovering up here. Oops.
No, I can't see that, but I just figured out how to do it because I clicked like what the snipping tool was, and then it told me the Windows Shift and S.
Yep.
Delaney, just take a picture of it and turn it in on Google Classroom.
Yep. This is Edward. Hello.
Delaney, if you get Google Classroom on your phone, you can just take a picture and turn it in.
Yeah.
That's what I done.
Good idea, Tate. Good idea.
All right. Did we all get that?
Bye, Clark.
Yes. Can we be done now?
Bye, Clark.
Now and you've got it turned into Google Classroom, you can go ahead and go.
Later, Clark.
Then we're not coming back. You don't need to come back for after lunch or anything like that. The Google Meet will not be.
Adios.
See you guys on Wednesday.
Have a good rest of your day, Mr.
Bye,
Clark.
Eddie.
You as well. See you guys.